While Francis was in the East, something had been growing in Italy that he no longer recognized. When he had asked the Pope to bless his way of life, 10 years earlier, he had been a small band of men you could count on your fingers. Now the friars numbered in the thousands, scattered across Italy, France, Spain, Germany, the Holy Land. A movement born in a country chapel had become a presence across all of Europe, and a presence that large could no longer live on spoken words alone, on handshakes and example. It needed written rules, houses, study, organization. It needed, in a word, everything Francis had wanted to avoid. While he was away from home, 2 friars left to govern in his absence had made decisions that struck Francis as a betrayal of the first spirit. Harder and more structured ways of living had crept in, rules about fasting, a stiffer discipline, and some had begun to dream of settled convents, of books, of a training fit for clergy. Hurrying back from Egypt, Francis found an order that had grown rigid and divided, and he understood something that wounded him deep within. He could no longer hold the whole thing together by the sheer force of his own example. In those same months, one of the very first companions died, Brother Peter Catani, the man Francis had set over the brotherhood on his return from the East. His passing in the spring of 1221 left a gap at the most delicate possible moment. In his place rose a figure of an altogether different temper, Brother Elias of Cortona, a capable man, full of energy, an organizer to the bone, someone who knew how a great body of people is led. Elias was exactly what the order seemed to need if it was not to fall apart, and at the same time, the thing furthest from the unarmed dream of its founder. Around 1221, perhaps the following year, Francis made the decision that many of his own did not expect. Before the assembled friars, he gave up the governance of the order. He did not abandon it. He remained the father, the soul, the living conscience of them all, but he handed to others the task of leading it, of administering it, of deciding. The sources say he did it with simple words, declaring himself as one now dead to that government, and entrusting the friars to those who would guide them. It was a brutal gesture for a man who had given his life to that movement, and who now watched his own creature walk on legs that were not his own. Over that creature another man now kept watch, one who came from far higher up. He was Cardinal Ugolino of Ostia, a powerful nobleman, a kinsman of the Pope, destined to climb to the throne of Peter himself under the name of Gregory IX. Ugolino had met Francis and had been struck by him, and he had made himself the protector of the order, a kind of official guardian at the court of Rome. He was a great jurist, a churchman to the marrow, and he saw a danger with perfect clarity. A movement so vast and so free, without firm rules, risked drifting into heresy or crumbling away. He wanted to protect Francis even from himself, to give the fire a shape before it burned out of control. Beneath this seeming harmony, the deepest fracture was smoldering, and it came down to a single word: poverty. For Francis, it was everything, the heart of the gospel taken at its word, to live owning nothing, without houses, without securities, depending each day on providence and on the work of one's own hands. But how could an order of thousands of friars live that way, truly without a roof, without books to study, without a place where the sick could be cared for and the brothers could gather? Reality pressed in with practical questions that the absolute ideal could not answer. A part of the friars pushed to adapt, to accept at least the use of things without owning them. Francis felt in this the beginning of a surrender, and it ached in him like an open wound. That tension was not a quarrel between persons. It was the clash of two truths that were both true. There was total faithfulness to an ideal that, to stay pure, perhaps had to stay small. And there was responsibility toward thousands of real men, with bodies to be fed and souls to be guarded over time. Francis never gave up his dream, but by stepping aside, he quietly admitted that the dream, to survive in the world, would have to bend in some measure to the world. It is the price that every living thing pays as it grows, and he paid it with the grief of one who loves. In the next chapter, we will enter that battlefield with a pen. When out of this clash the rules were born, first the one without a seal, refused, then the one approved by Pope Honorius III, and we will see word by word what Francis was forced to surrender and what he defended to the very end.